Sometimes the most meaningful growth is happening quietly beneath the surface. The moments of safety and trust and reflection that your teen is experiencing right now might not look dramatic or life-changing yet, but they're building something real. And change is rarely instant. It's layered, it's messy, and it's deeply human, right? If we just look at our own life, our own path, we can see that so clearly for ourselves that it's taken what it's taken to get us right here. Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmine Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back into the podcast. I have been grappling with something lately that I wanted to talk to you about today. This is something that inevitably comes up for all coaches and therapists as they work with people who are really going through a hard time in their lives. Their clients or patients might be feeling really stuck or super anxious or even really depressed. And this definitely is something I face as a life coach because almost daily I'm working with teens and adults who battle with some really big stuff like self-harm, addiction, and even suicidal ideation. And anytime someone crosses my path and enters a coaching or mentoring space with me, I pour my heart and my soul into the encounter, really trying to meet them where they're at and help them to see themselves in a new light or experience a little glimmer of hope or possibility for their future. I work really hard to help them uncover their own inner wisdom and help them to step forward onto their path by giving them tools and strategies and a non-judgmental space to express themselves so they can feel deeply seen and heard. But every client is coming in wherever they're at. Some are at a point where they're absolutely ready to fully commit, take in every bit of information and apply it and be completely real, honest, and vulnerable during our sessions. And others are not quite there. I've worked with so many clients that have had massive transformations, and I've also worked with those who haven't. There are even many clients I've worked with whose challenges have gone beyond the scope of life coaching, who I've referred to therapists for deeper work. And there are some clients who come into sessions who aren't really being honest with themselves or with me about what they're going through or the actions or improvements that they've made during the time in between our sessions. And there are some clients who frequently cancel or don't show up to sessions. There are some clients who won't look at any supplemental materials between sessions and who don't give a single thought to what they've learned in a session until the next time we meet. So everyone is coming in where they're at. And all of that impacts the results that they're going to receive from any type of support. And this has really got me thinking a lot lately about this idea of quote unquote success. So often when parents reach out, whether it's for coaching, a program, or support for their teens, what they're really looking for is a problem to be solved. They want a clear before and after moment, something that says, okay, we did it. It worked, right? And I get that. As parents, we're wired to want reassurance, to know that our effort and our investment and our hope is paying off in some really tangible way. But the truth is it's not always that black and white. There's no guaranteed formula for transformation. There's no magic 3-month plan that suddenly rewires years of struggle, anxiety, or self-doubt because we're not coaching robots. We're coaching real, complex, feeling human beings. Teenagers who have habits and fears, protective walls, and nervous systems that are doing the best they can in any given moment. And what if success isn't always a huge visible transformation? What if it looks like a kid who finally feels seen and heard, maybe for the first time? What if it's a teen who's still struggling, but now has someone in their corner who listens and validates and believes in them without judgment? I've worked with a lot of teens facing some really big challenges, and while not every story ends with an overnight breakthrough, sometimes the real win is a lot more subtle. It might be just in the small shifts they're making. It could be in the safety that gets built session by session. It could be the seed that gets planted that might not bloom until months or even years later. Because what I've learned is that effort and commitment really do matter. and a coach or therapist can only do their part. So the client, the teenager, the parent, whoever it might be, has to meet us halfway by showing up, by being honest, by doing the work between sessions, and by allowing themselves to be seen in their vulnerability. And even then, growth can't happen in a vacuum. If the dynamic at home doesn't shift, if they're still walking on eggshells or aren't given space to try new things and stumble a little along the way, that transformation gets stunted. So change takes time, it takes what it takes, and it looks different for every single young person. So that's what I want to talk about today and really unpack this idea that success in coaching or in parenting or in growth work, it isn't always visible or immediate. Sometimes it's actually invisible, but that doesn't mean it's not happening or it's not working underneath the surface. All right. So I want us to really today just expand our definition of success, because that's where I think, a lot of parents fall into the trap of thinking something's not working that I'm investing in for my kid because they're not seeing immediate tangible results. But that's just not how we work as humans, right? We take time to grow, we take time to change, we take time to evolve. And the more support we have and the more the system changes as a whole, the more likely that we will actually be able to make those improvements over time. So let's dive in and see what we can unpack with this conversation. All right, so first let's just talk about this idea of needing to fix a problem. All right, so when we as a parent seek out coaching support for our kid, we're kind of seeing our kid and what they're going through as a problem that needs to be solved. All right, so whether they're going through confidence issues or anxiety or whatever it might be, whatever they're going through, lack of motivation, maybe dysregulation, explosive emotions, whatever the issue is that they're facing, parents are seeking coaching for their kid in order to help resolve these issues, right? And so for a parent, what they are investing in is for this issue to be resolved, for my kid to feel confident instead of anxious, for my kid to be regulated instead of explosive, for my kid to be engaged instead of isolated, right? So you're looking at this thing and wanting the opposite of whatever that thing is, okay? And so you pay for a coach, you get them in coaching, and then the coach starts working with them. And the teen is coming, they're sharing what's going on with them, they're receiving tools, they're receiving accountability and support. And for many of them, you will start to see some immediate shifts. You'll start to see some changes in their behaviors or changes in the way that they're talking about themselves or changes in the things that they are, seeking out in their life. Maybe they're going and trying things that they were too afraid to try before. And so a lot of times we might start seeing some of those shifts happening. And other times, we might not, right? They might still be dysregulated. They might still be having, panic attacks or anxiety or whatever it might be, right? Because each kid, each teenager is coming in, again, where they're at. And so, they are only able to apply what they're able to apply in any given moment. They're only able to receive what they're able to receive in any given moment. So every person's journey is going to look different and the timeline is going to be different. For some of them, it might be a really quick transformation. For some of them, they might just soak it in right away and apply it and start to see really massive changes happening at a rapid pace. And for others, it might just be that a lot of the information is washing over them, right? That they are hearing it, but they're not applying it. Or maybe they're even, struggling so much with whatever it might be that they even have a hard time, making it to a coaching session or really being honest with what's going on with them or whatever it might be. So change for each kid is going to come at their own pace and at their own timing. And as much as we want it to be fast and as much as we want it to be rushed and as much as we want to see them, experience joy and happiness and contentment and confidence and all of those things, it's going to take what it's going to take, right? It's going to take their own timeline. It's going to take them choosing it for themselves. It's going to take them applying it for themselves. We cannot do the work for them, right? And, there isn't really this like finish line because if I relate this to my own life, right? I mean, I have dealt with lots of the same issues that my teen clients deal with right now. I've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with, hiding out and being really introverted. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with discontent. I've dealt with being dysregulated. And these are things that most of us as humans deal with to some level or another, right? And for myself, it's not like I, learn tools and then all of a sudden I've arrived, right? Okay, now I'm enlightened. Now I know all the things, and now I'm going to always behave and act in these ways that I know serve me the most, right? It's not this linear experience, right? We have little pockets of epiphany. We have little moments of ahas, right? That like, oh, wow, that really makes sense. And then we go out and apply it and it works and we feel this interchange, right? And then we're met with another challenge and sometimes old patterns resurface. And so this is not this one and done experience where you learn a tool and all of a sudden you have it for life and you can apply it to every new situation, right? We're learning tools and we're building new pathways in our brain, and that takes time. Neural pathways take time to develop. And old patterns and habits that are deeply ingrained in our brain, those take a lot of time and practice to start to discard. We have to actually stop using them for a long time for them to not be our go-to default mode, right? And so this isn't just, fast and easy. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of discomfort. It takes a lot of revisiting things. It takes a lot of relearning things, hearing things over and over and over again so that they can actually become part of our habits and part of our internal knowing, our understanding about the way the world works. Us just learning that our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our behaviors and our behaviors create our results. That's really beautiful in concept. And we might be able to apply it to one situation right after a coaching call. But then to remember that and to remember to catch our thoughts every single day, that's a practice. And that takes coming back again and again and again and being reminded like, oh, yeah, there's that thought again that's not serving you, that's leading you to feel really bad about yourself or whatever it might be. That's just one example of a coaching tool that I teach, my clients all the time. It makes perfect sense, but applying it is not easy. And as Byron Katie calls it, is the work, right? It's an ongoing work. It's an ongoing practice. It's not just something we figure out and then the problem is solved. So I just really want to debunk that myth that we can just send our teen off to coaching and have whatever they're going through be fixed. And now they're a new person with all these new skills and their life is transformed from this point forward, right? Even if they experience a transformation in a 3-month coaching program, that takes work to maintain. That takes practice to keep those habits in place. So even when we have that experience of transformation, of aha, of growth, that is a spectrum of change over time. That is not just a one and done linear beginning point to end point, and now we have arrived. All right, so I just want to say that to start off with. So really just debunking the myth that our teenagers are a problem to be fixed and that they can just be fixed and then all of those problems are just gone, right? All right, the second thing I want to point out is that there is something so powerful about having a young person just have someone that is sitting with them and being present with them and providing unconditional support without judgment. All right. So when we think about what is success, what are we measuring success by? A lot of times when we think about success, we're thinking, I want this result. We are here at level 3 for confidence, and I want my teen to be at a level 10, right? So that's what we're measuring our success on. And I would like to, again, debunk this because success is not necessarily just having more confidence, having less anxiety, going after more goals. That is one measure of success. Success is also having a space for your teen to come and receive support. Have someone that is listening to them and validating them and helping to highlight their strength and their beauty and their wisdom, right? So even if you don't see something measurable after a coaching session, what's happening inside their understanding of who they are and what they have to offer the world, and the fact that they are worthy of connection and they're worthy of being seen and being validated. All of that is so important. And so, whether or not we see tangible results in a coaching session or in mentorship or therapy from our team, the fact that they are going to a space where someone is deeply listening to them and they get to be seen and witnessed, that to me is success, right? That to me is such a huge and missing piece for our young people. They do not have spaces where they get to just fully be their authentic selves, to be received as their authentic selves, to be celebrated for being their authentic selves, and to, just be encouraged and supported. And if we think about how we have evolved and where we came from historically in tribes and villages and things like that, there were all these ways that, communities supported young people. And they had, aunties and uncles and community members and elders that, saw them and created spaces for them to express themselves and to be validated and to mark moments in their lives and be recognized in new transitional points and all of those things that we don't see so much today, right? In our nuclear families, in our education systems, right? We don't have opportunities for young people to really just be held in a space where they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel connected, they feel heard, they feel validated, right? So that right there, providing a space for a young person to have a connection with a mentor, with a coach, with a therapist, with someone outside of their family unit, that to me is success. What they do with that session, what they do with that time, whether they, go out and accomplish their action steps, whether or not they're even being 100% honest with themselves or with their coach, them having a space to do that and to be held like that is success in my view. All right, and the third thing I want to talk about today is how important it is for a client, a young person that's coming in to receive support, or anyone that is seeking coaching support or therapy or anything like that, to have a level of commitment and effort and meeting their coach or mentor in the middle. Because coaching and therapy are not magic, they are a partnership. So the young person has to show up honestly and not perform for approval. They have to actually come to the sessions. They have to, be willing to commit to outside work and to applying what they learn to their life to really see some change happening. And so some things that we can do to help them set themselves up for success is to remind them that, showing up for their sessions is, first of all, number one. Like, I can't do anything for a young person that doesn't come to the session with me, right? So if we have something scheduled and they have a last minute cancel, and that keeps happening where they're not actually coming to sessions, I can't really do much. I can only help if they're with me and they're in the space. The other thing is, for them to tell the truth, to really be honest with what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, and what they've accomplished, right? Coming into a session and saying, oh yeah, I went to the gym 3 times and I did this and I went and, made this connection with a friend like we had talked about. If they start telling me things that didn't actually happen, they're stunting their own progress, because then we're building off of these things that they didn't actually do. And so, them really coming to sessions and coaching, committing to the truth, committing to just showing up wherever they're at, and to knowing that they're not going to be judged for not following through on an action step. They're not going to be punished. They're not going to be looked down upon because they didn't apply something. But if they're truthful about it, then we can really get to the heart of what's going on. The other part is to just really try the tools that they learn. So if they learn tools in a coaching session, if they don't go out and apply them and put them into practice, then they forget them and they're not helpful, right? The only way a tool is helpful is if it actually gets applied. So really, doing your due diligence to actually put those tools into practice. and doing that work in between sessions. So in my coaching programs, I have an online course that all of my clients can access for the entire duration of the program and even beyond. And so every week they have a few short videos that they can watch, and they have worksheets where they can apply the lesson into their own life and action steps and things like that. Many of them do not open up those programs. And that's understandable. Our teenagers, they have a lot going on in their lives. They have lots of homework, they have lots of activities that they're engaged in. So adding another thing onto their plate can be really challenging. But the more that they apply themselves and actually put in the work, the more results that they're going to have, right? So if they never open up those online courses and they never open up a single video or do a single worksheet, they're going to have less of an impact from the 12-week time together. So the more committed they are, the more willing they are to, schedule out 30 minutes in between sessions to actually look at material and apply material to their lives, the more success that they will have, right? And then the last part is just for them to really stay curious instead of defensive. So just the understanding that, hey, my coach is here to help me draw things out of myself that maybe I, need to look at a little bit. And they're doing it for me. They're doing it to help me grow. And so really coming into coaching with that growth mindset of feedback is information that I can use to grow and change. And I actually want feedback because I came in wanting something different for myself. And so the more open I can be to feedback, the more curious I can be, and the less defensive, again, the more I'm going to get out of this experience. And so it's just the idea that change doesn't come from the hour that we spend together in coaching. Although, there can be ahas, there can be moments of transformation, there can be beautiful connection in that time, in that hour together. But really, it comes from how they live differently in the 167 hours between our sessions. How are they integrating this information? How are they thinking about it? How are they journaling about it? How are they using some of the regulation tools, actually starting their day with some box breathing or a guided meditation or drinking a glass of water? How are they applying what they're learning, right, in between sessions? Because that's where the real growth, that's where the real magic starts to happen, is when they learn something in a session, they come to an aha moment, they come to an epiphany, and then they start to apply it every day. And so that's one of the reasons I have them apply daily rituals, So in the morning, they're doing something where they're checking in with themselves, they're reminding themselves about a coaching tool, they're, trying to apply it during the day. And at nighttime, they're writing in their journal about how it went. The more it's up front, the more they are utilizing it and pulling from it and applying it, the more they're going to get out of it. And so, again, this is why every teen is going to experience coaching differently, because some teens are coming into a program and just soaking it all in and going out there and applying it and using it and taking those actions, right? And some are barely making it to the session, let alone applying things or opening up a video or a worksheet in between sessions, right? So the level of effort and commitment and meeting the coach in the middle makes a massive difference for what they're going to get out of coaching. Okay. All right. And the fourth thing I want to mention today is that the environment really matters. So teens do not grow in a vacuum. If the home dynamic does not shift, if they aren't given space to practice new behaviors or test boundaries or make mistakes, transformation is going to stall. The whole system has to evolve a little bit in order for them to have a space to really make these changes in their lives. So if we just ask our teens to go to coaching and work on themselves, but we're not willing to work on ourselves and grow and change at the same time, it's going to be a lot harder for them to experience real and lasting change, right? And so we can kind of check in with ourselves about a few things. I'm going to give you a few questions here for reflection, because if we're not doing this work simultaneously, and they don't have the type of support that would really help them to blossom in this moment, then they can only do so much on their own. So if you have sent your teen to coaching or therapy to help them change, I would invite you to ask yourself some of these questions. Are you still having explosive interactions with your teen and unable to regulate your own emotions? Are you micromanaging their every move? Are you constantly nagging and noticing everything that's going wrong? Are you laying down guilt trips or being passive aggressive or giving the silent treatment to them? Are you jumping in to fix, to rescue, or find solutions for every one of their problems instead of just providing a space for them to come to you and be seen? Are you having more negative interactions than positive interactions with them and missing out on the 5-to-1 ratio that's needed for a connected relationship? And I've mentioned this in a couple of the podcast episodes before, but if you haven't heard of this, this comes from the research of John Gottman and Daniel Goleman. They talk about how for any relationship to thrive and be really connected, you need 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. So, how is that ratio going for you right now? And finally, are you not allowing them to pursue what really matters to them and clinging on for dear life to your own hopes and dreams for their future instead of letting them pursue what's important to them? So these are the things that we can start to address for ourselves and our parenting journey, right? And if we do this work, right, of really becoming the type of parent that's going to hold space for them and not try to jump in and fix all of their problems and not constantly micromanage and control and, point out what's wrong, but really create connection and trust and harmony in our relationship and in our home space, that is going to provide an environment where they can really do the work on themselves. We're just laying that foundation when we do that work together, okay? So what I often see is parents send their teen to me, again, to fix them, to fix their teen, to, create a transformation for their teen, but the space that the teen is in is not changing. So their parent is still having explosive interactions with them. Their parent is not allowing them to go pursue these goals that are important to them, whatever it might be. We also need to be growing ourselves. We can't just send our kids to grow and change if we're not willing to do the work ourselves. And the more we can do this work together, the more we're going to actually see these changes that we want so desperately. So I personally don't think it's a fair request to tell our teen to go do all this work if we're not willing to do our own work. If we want them to be able to change, the whole system needs to change. And that really starts with us. And that's something I talk to parents too who have teenagers who are not willing to get coaching support themselves. Is that so much of the work that will actually help our teens to make changes in their life comes from how we show up as parents. So the change that we do on ourselves impacts them dramatically. And so if they won't go to coaching, I would encourage you so wholeheartedly to go get coaching yourself. That's what changed so much for my kids, right? When I went and did the work for myself, everything started to change. Their behaviors changed. Our connection changed. Their ability to regulate their emotions changed. Their ability to go out and work towards goals that were important to them changed. Everything changed just by what I started to do as a parent and the space that I create for them. All right. So I invite you to that. It's not easy. It's not easy to look at ourselves. It's not easy to recognize that we also have room for improvement and room for growth. But that's just part of our life journey, right? There's always another layer of growth that we can go towards. And the more that we're constantly, peeling those layers and going a little bit deeper with our own growth, the more we invite that with our kids, right? They watch us. They learn from what we do and how we act and from our energy, so much more than the words that we say. And so that is such a powerful place to start. All right. And lastly, I want to talk about the long game and how what we're actually doing is we're planting seeds. So change takes time. And I've said this a few times in this episode, but it bears repeating, right? Sometimes the seeds that we plant do not sprout until months or years later, right? So what I would really encourage you to do is to zoom out a little bit, right? And just look at the big picture. If you look back on, your kid when they were 5 versus when they were 10, when they were 10 versus when they were 15, and how the changes that you've seen in them have happened incrementally over time. It hasn't been just instant change. Change takes time. And so the more we can actually allow for space and allow for the understanding that every person is on their own journey and their own timeline, they're ready for what they're ready for in the moment that they're ready for it, not when someone else says it's time. And we've seen that with ourselves, right? If we've tried to quit a habit that, we wanted to quit, we are not successful until we are really ready to do it, right? It's not just saying that we're ready, it's that until we really come to that internal shift inside. And so that's different for every person. We plant seeds, we give tools, we give information, we provide support, we do all of these things. And that is building something. It's kind of building a foundation. But sometimes we don't see the fruits of that for a while. And a lot of what's happening for young people is that they are changing developmentally over time, right? Their capacity, their maturity, their brain development, their prefrontal cortex, their hormonal shifts, right? All these things are happening right now. And even just time for them to mature and grow, that creates change. And then them to, hear something one time and then hear it again 6 months down the road, and them to see someone else put it into practice and really want that for themselves. Like there's just so many layers to how we take in information and how we apply information and how long it takes for each individual person. And so this is a long game. We'll give these opportunities to our kids that are short-term experiences, whether that's, sending them out on a wilderness trip or a rites of passage experience or a 12-week coaching container, right? These are finite experiences that, we might not see the immediate results from, for years down the line. Someone might come to us years later and say, oh my gosh, you changed my life. Because, when I was this age, all of a sudden it really clicked in. Or whatever it might be. Just having that person in their corner shifted something about their own belief about themselves, which then later down the road made them capable of doing something that was really hard that they never thought that they could do. And so just that understanding, just like it's taken, 18 years or however many years it is that your kid has been on this planet, right, at this point, for them to get to exactly where they are right now. It has been a long game. All of the things that you have layered in over the years for support for them, whether that was laying in bed with them at night, reading them a book every night for the first 10 years of their life, or it was driving them to, their preschools and their schools and their events, or it was the birthday parties or showing up to their sporting events or their violin concerts, all the things that you've been doing, packing their lunches and making their dinners and buying their school clothes, and all of those things are things that have been a long game and that have, ended up with this experience that you've created for them over the span of their lives, that have shaped them, that have created so much of their foundation, so much of their belief in themselves or their self-love or whatever it might be. It's taken years and years and years and years of your love and support for all of those things to be built. And it's the same way with anything that they're going to take on in their life. It unfolds over time. It's the span of their life when they look back on it and say, that moment, that did something inside. I didn't know it then. I didn't see it then. Or even them being able to recognize like how much you as their parent have impacted them and how much they appreciate you, where they couldn't see that in the moment. They didn't feel it at that time. They just felt whatever those big hard emotions were at the moment, or they felt like they were, being restricted, or there was too many rules or whatever it might be. And so they were lashing out or rebelling or whatever it was. But now, that they're older, they can look back and say, wow, you really provided safety and boundaries for me. You really showed up for me. And that made a difference in my life. Thank you for everything that you've done. So again, long game, planting seeds. We don't know when these seeds are going to blossom. We don't know when that first sprout's going to emerge from the earth, but we're still going to plant them. We're going to keep planting them. We're going to provide as many seeds as possible for our kids, that network, that village, that support system for them. And we don't know which one is going to take off, which one's going to resonate, which one's going to be the piece that really helps them into this next version of themselves, helps them to, feel confident or strong or whatever. But the more seeds we can plant, the better. The better the foundation, the stronger the building. So if you're a parent listening and wondering whether any of this is working, whether all the supports that you've put in place for your kid are actually taking root, I would invite you just to take a breath. Sometimes the most meaningful growth is happening quietly beneath the surface. The moments of safety and trust and reflection that your teen is experiencing right now might not look dramatic or life-changing yet, but they're building something real. And change is rarely instant. It's layered, it's messy, and it's deeply human. If we just look at our own life, our own path, we can see that so clearly for ourselves, right? That it's taken what it's taken to get us right here. But every time your teen shows up, even when it's hard, they're practicing courage. And every time you show up, even when it feels uncertain, you're planting seeds of connection that are going to keep growing long after this season of their life has passed. All right. And so just know that things are happening under the surface, even if they're not presenting on the exterior. So if you know it's time for some extra support, if you and your teen are ready for a shift and you want someone to walk alongside you in this process, I'm here to help. I'm currently enrolling for my 12-week coaching programs for teens and young adults, Rise Up and Ignite. These are programs for young people aged 12 to 24. And I'm also enrolling for my 8-week parent coaching program called Rooted in Connection. So I would invite you to check them out. Again, the more supports we have, the better. So you can find all the program info and all the links to book a call to see if this could be a good fit for you or for your teen or for your family as a whole. You can find all those links in the show notes. And feel free at any time to reach out to me via DM on Instagram at jasmine.guidedpassages. That's Jasmine with a Y. You can also send an email to jasmine@guided-passages.com, or you can go to my website at www.guided-passages.com. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for, just exploring these topics with me and being open to, new perspectives about these issues. And hopefully you got some insight and you feel supported today. All right, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.